Hola, ¿qué tal estás? Gracias por acompañarnos nuevamente en un nuevo episodio de Pensamiento en Soledad. Recuerda que estamos aprendiendo a navegar en este mar de emociones. De verdad que para mí es una bendición que puedas acompañarme. Siempre estoy esperando tus comentarios y si quieres que oremos por ti o algo, yo siempre me siento feliz de que te comuniques con nosotros. Y pues seguimos aprendiendo, estuvimos hablando de lo que era la ansiedad y esta vez quiero que hablemos de la depresión. Y tenemos la bendición de contar nuevamente con nuestra invitada especial, Megan Smith. Bienvenida, Megan.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Gracias por tu tiempo, gracias por lo que estás aportando a nosotros. Para mí personalmente es una bendición muy grande porque estás ayudándonos a entender mejor todo este mundo de las emociones. Y pues hoy vamos a hablar exclusivamente de depresión porque en mi cabeza hay muchas preguntas. Yo tengo muchas dudas, muchas cosas que no entendí, que en el momento en que pasaron las cosas, yo hubiera querido que alguien me explicara o me dijera, esto está pasando por esto, ¿verdad? Yo siento que cuando uno enferma y vas al doctor, el doctor te puede explicar y hasta te hacen un dibujito y te dicen, esto está pasando porque usted hizo esto.
Yes.
Entonces, es tan diferente con la salud mental, es tan diferente con todo esto. Yo realmente estoy muy agradecida por tu tiempo. Así que vamos a hablar de esto. Yo quisiera, tenemos unas preguntas para Megan. Queremos saber qué es lo que ella piensa, lo que ella ha estudiado, aprendido. Y la primera es, ¿qué pasa en mi cerebro? ¿Qué está pasando en mi cerebro cuando yo tengo depresión? Porque es algo que yo a veces me sentía extraña de aquí. Yo sentía mi cabeza grande y me sentía muy, muy mal. Entonces yo quisiera que tú nos puedas explicar qué pasa en el cerebro cuando estoy con depresión.
Actually, a lot happens. And there's a lot of theories and different things. Like last time we talked about anxiety, and I brought up some of the psychological theories on why people think you have anxiety. It's kind of the same with depression. And actually, anxiety and depression a lot of times go hand in hand, and they come together, which is unfortunate. But the reason being for that is because it all starts in your mind, right? And we compared anxiety to an alarm going off in your mind that it's hard to turn off sometimes because your body feels unsafe. Well, depression is a very similar thing. Actually, a lot of times depression is caused by a chemical imbalance in our brain. And of course, there are many things that can trigger that. But a lot of the neurotransmitters that are imbalanced in our brain are what can cause depression. So like serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. Those are some of the three major ones, but they're all neurotransmitters in our brain, right? But we can get more into that later. But like I said last time, when anxiety and depression go together, it's called comorbidity, right? And that's a term that's very well used in the psychology world. And actually, the unfortunate thing is that if you have depression, you are 50 to 60% more likely to have anxiety as well, right? And that's not good for us, right? That just makes so many more things harder. Same the other way around. If you have anxiety, you are 60 to 70% more likely to have depression, right? And that's unfortunate. And it's also something we should expect to see. Because if you start feeling anxious, it's easy to start feeling like there's something wrong with me. Why do I feel so bad? I feel sad all the time now because I feel like I'm the problem, right? And you're not the problem, right? There's just sometimes your brain sends messages that is not true, right? And it happens inside our body and we can't necessarily control that, but we can learn how to deal with it when it does happen. And one thing, like you said, you feel so bad with depression. Oops, I hit my mic. One thing that you said is like with depression, you feel so bad right? In your brain and in your body, there's so many side effects of depression. But I want to be clear that depression does not look the same for everyone. It looks very different. In fact, depression is not always sadness. Sometimes it's feeling numb and not feeling anything at all. You may be like, well, I'm not depressed because I'm not sad. I just don't ever feel happy. I just don't feel any emotion at all. That can still be depression. And there's a whole list of symptoms that can lead to depression or can come from depression, right? Like I said, sometimes anxiety causes it. Sometimes depression causes anxiety. It just kind of goes back and forth. Or for me in my life, I dealt with depression for a while, and it was caused by a death of someone I loved, right? So depression doesn't always look the same. Sometimes it's feeling no emotion at all, or experiencing emotions in the moment, but feeling deep down in your mind that I will never truly be happy. I may be laughing at this person's joke, but I'm not happy. I have no joy, right? Sometimes it's just the feeling that this will never stop. This will never go away. I will always be sad or tired, and I just don't know how to fix it. It's just never gonna go away, right? So if that sounds like something you're struggling with, right, we hope that this podcast episode can help you. Of course, like we said in our last podcast episode, we're not doctors. I'm not a doctor. I just have a degree in this stuff, and so I like to share my knowledge on it, right? But if you are really severely struggling with this, or if anything we talk about in this episode sounds like something you are dealing with, please, 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 we ask you, go find someone to help you. Whether that's a friend, a sibling, or a doctor, even more so, seeing a therapist. I cannot recommend it enough. I've seen one myself. It's amazing, the mental health journey you can go on when you get a little bit of help, right? So we're here to help you understand maybe some more things about why you feel the way you feel. And maybe a few techniques to help support you as well. But just like anxiety, depression is a lot more common than people think, right? Depression is everywhere. I see it a lot in friends and family, just on the day-to-day basis. When I talk to someone, you can almost tell when there's a light that's kind of going out, right? And I wanted to share a statistic that was shocking to me, and I hope it's shocking to you. Globally, about 280 million people live with depression. And of course, all the statistics I share are found from either trusted sources online or from the DSM, which is written by the American Psychological Association, right? They study these mental illnesses, and they collect these statistics. And so a lot of what I share is from them too. And so I want you to know these statistics are trusted, but what's unfortunate is these are only the people that have come forward and mentioned that they have depression or have seen a doctor, or these aren't people that have stayed home because I have kids to take care of. I can't worry about that right now, right? Or I'm too old, no one will believe me, right? Or I'm just a kid. Mom says I'm supposed to be a kid and be happy, so I'm not going to tell her I'm sad. I don't want to make mom sad, right? These are all thoughts that we see in people with depression. And about 5% of all adults in the world deal with it. And it's unfortunate. But like I said, doesn't look the same for all people. And sometimes it can be hard to define what depression really is because it looks so different, right? The DSM-5 mentions several symptoms, which I will tell you today what some of those are. But you could look at that book and be like, I have all of those sometimes, but some days I feel okay. And so, or you could say, oh my gosh, I have one of those symptoms. I must be depressed. No, Actually, it's very specific on who has a disorder. And you can feel depressed without having a disorder, right? Like we talked about with anxiety. You can feel anxious without having an anxiety disorder that affects your life, right? So the DSM-5, or the correct term for it, is Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's a long, that's why we call it the DSM, because it's a lot of words, right? But it's published by the American Psychiatric Association, and it's used for diagnosing patients, but it lists all the symptoms that depression can look like. So like I said, if you hear these and you relate to them, don't freak out. You may feel depressed or experience these symptoms, but one symptom or two or three symptoms by themselves does not mean this is your main problem, right? It can mean a lot of things, right? So feeling tired, having no energy at all, which happens to me a lot, right? But that doesn't mean I necessarily struggle with this, right? So, but feeling tired or no energy at all, that can be a symptom of depression. Feeling fatigued, like you just don't want to do things. Feeling tired, exhausted. If you're to the point where just everyday tasks seem overwhelming, like that sink full of dishes is just too much to think about right now, or man, I have to fold my laundry, but I really just don't want to. It feels like too much right now. I don't want to do anything. That can be a symptom. Feeling sad, feeling empty, like I said earlier, numb, not feeling anything at all. Feeling hopeless. Actually, in regards to feelings with depression, a fun fact, maybe not fun, but a fact, is that in children, a lot of times depression presents as anger. Or anxiety too, really. But so because a child, think about it, children don't experience a lot of sadness in their life. Most children haven't seen a lot of death, a lot of young children haven't had a pet die. They haven't experienced too many sad things, right? Not every child, but a lot of children, right? And so if they experience these sad feelings, they may not know how to handle them. But every child has been angry, right? Every child gets angry with mom or dad or my sister or my brother. They stole my toy and I'm mad. So when they feel these unknown emotions, the only way they think to process it is through anger, right? So if you have a child who's acting out or just angry all the time and you don't know why, this may be a good thing to ask them. Hey, are you feeling some of these things? Are you have some feelings going on? Let's talk about them, right? And really, children just want to be heard. So that's the best conversation you can have with them. It's a scary one, but it is the best conversation you can have with your child. Like I said, feeling stressed or anxious, that's part of depression. Having no interest in activities that you used to like, right? Maybe you used to love going hiking or doing something with your family. You used to love playing games or anything really. But now you're just like, just don't want to. I can't. I don't know why, but I can't. That can be a symptom. Gaining or losing weight. Not wanting to eat. Binge eating is the opposite version of that. So like I said, it can look so different in everyone. One person can be not hungry ever, right? Because they just feel sad. I just don't want to eat. I don't want to get out of bed. I can't do it. Whereas the other person is like, the only thing that makes me feel better is food. So I'm going to eat as much of it as I can, right? And I've seen both. Insomnia, not being able to sleep, or hypersomnia, where all you do is sleep, right? Both can be symptoms as well. Very harsh criticism of yourself. I can't do anything right. I'm always wrong. I don't understand. Oh, I failed this test again. A lot of people are their own worst critics of themselves. But sometimes with depression or anxiety, it's a lot worse because you already feel like there's a problem And so now you're taking it out on yourself, right? Feeling guilty, because what if you're a mom and you're feeling these emotions and you're like, I'm not supposed to be feeling this way. I'm supposed to be taking care of my kids. How are my kids going to feel if they see that I'm always sad and I can't do the dishes and I can't do the laundry and I can't make them lunch for school because I just can't? Feeling guilty, that's a big symptom. And it's one that's, I think, often overlooked because, like I said, with harsh self-criticism, you can just say, oh, I'm just a bad mom. I'm just a bad dad. I just don't feel like spending time with my kids. I'm just bad. But that can be caused by another issue, right? Having trouble focusing, especially in people who are a little bit older, who already maybe sometimes have hard times focusing, even more so if you have depression. Feeling mentally foggy, that's a big one too. Just not being able to clearly process and think things through the way you once were able to. So like I said, that's a lot. That's a lot of symptoms. So for everyone, it's different. So if you, I don't want anyone to look at this podcast and be like, mine looks different. The way I feel looks different. So that's not true for me. Right? Because even if you don't have depression, you may feel all these symptoms and be like, I don't feel sad, but I don't know what's wrong with me. You deserve to be healthy and you deserve to have the best mental health that you can. And so you deserve to see someone to help you solve that problem, right? I can't sit here and diagnose you and tell you, oh, if you feel all these things, you have anxiety, because that may not be the issue for you. It may be something totally different, like you're low in iron. Sometimes being low in iron causes a lot of those things, right? It may not mean you have depression, but seeing someone and answering more questions is what helps finally answer to that, right? In extreme cases, a symptom is suicidal thoughts or tendencies. Like self-harm. And I'll come back to that later because that's a big one. It's a big one and it needs to be talked about, right?
Exact.
But we'll come back to that, right? So, like I said, the DSM-5 does not classify depression as just feeling sad, right? And I think a lot of times that's kind of what people see depression as, just sadness. Oh, no, I'm not sad. I'm fine. Or a movie that does a great job at this is Inside Out, where all the emotions in her brain, sadness, the character, she seems to have depression, right? However, joy throughout the first movie does too, even though she's happy sometimes. But the movie, if you've seen it, you might know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to spoil it for you either. It's a great movie and I recommend watching it. But there are multiple symptoms that could be a pattern leading to something. And a lot of times I think that mental health is just recognizing patterns, right? Like with anxiety, you recognize the pattern that I keep feeling anxious. I keep thinking this bad thought. I keep shaking. I like all these patterns that lead you to the conclusion, oh, I'm dealing with anxiety. Okay, right? And so I hope this podcast helps you notice patterns that you may have. Maybe some of these symptoms could be one of them. Maybe there's more days than not that you can't get out of bed, or that you feel sad, or you feel tired, or maybe something just happened in your life that recently caused you to just feel not yourself, right? And it could be depression, right? And another thing about depression is it seems to be this big word that's really scary, right? I think a lot of people are scared of going to a psychologist or the doctor because they don't want to hear that big word. I don't want to be told, oh, you have depression. Oh, you have a mental health disorder. That's scary, right? That's in my mind, even me, for me, I'm a psychology major, and to me that sounds scary. But it's not. It's not scary at all. In fact, having the understanding of what you have or what is troubling you helps you figure out how to fix it, right? So back to your question on how do I feel this way, right? Why all of those symptoms? Why does it get to that, right? And so, like I said, depression is something that first starts in the brain. Something happens and your brain either shuts off or says, okay, I need to go into survival mode right now. Right now I just need to survive. Or sometimes it's the opposite, where I'm freaking out and I don't know what to do and I don't know what's wrong with me, right? So a lot of research done on people with depression shows that it can be caused by, like I said, an imbalance of neurotransmitters. Now, this is not always the case. I do want to clarify that. But it can be. So like I said, serotonin and dopamine are two major ones. We've all heard of dopamine, right? I think a lot of people associate dopamine with drugs or alcohol because we're told, oh, it boosts your dopamine and that's why it makes you an addict, which is true. But with depression, it's the opposite. Your dopamine level may be way down, right? Simplypsychology.org, a website that does research for the psychology world, distinguishes some of the differences between serotonin and dopamine because they're different, right? Dopamine is mainly found in your brain. Serotonin is mainly found in your body, right?
Interesante.
So serotonin is primarily found in your digestive system and in your gut. I just touched the mic, I'm so sorry. So serotonin is primarily found in your digestive system and in your gut. And what it does is it promotes emotional balance and helps with sleep, and it helps with digestion. So a lot of times you find that if you eat the right way, or if you drink a certain tea or something like that, you're able to sleep better because it boosts the serotonin in your gut. Right? Whereas dopamine is different. It's found mainly in the brain, and it drives reward, focus, and goal pursuit. So going after things that you want, right? And a lot of those symptoms involve all of those things that I just said, right? You don't want to pursue your goals. You have a hard time focusing. You are not interested in rewards because you feel like there is no reward for you. There's no reward for doing the things you love anymore. You have no emotional balance. You can't sleep. You don't want to eat, right? So you can naturally boost those. So if indeed you are dealing with depression because of low serotonin or low depression, or not depression, if you indeed are dealing with depression due to low serotonin or low dopamine, and I wish I could give you a brain scan and tell you if that's the problem, but I can't. But there are ways you can boost those, right, naturally, which if you have depression, don't you want to do that anyways? There are ways to get your neurotransmitter levels higher. So naturally you can do exercise. Exercising gets your mind going, it gets your body moving, right? You're moving, your insides are moving because you're moving your body, and that's a good thing, right?
Y siento que es algo que cuando uno tiene depresión no quiere hacer. Entonces, tú sientes que no te puedes mover, que no te quieres levantar, que no tienes la capacidad de levantarte en las mañanas, porque por lo menos en mi caso yo no dormía. Entonces, como yo dormía 4 horas, al otro día yo no tenía fuerzas, no tenía gasolina para levantarme. Entonces, puede ser que tú estés lidiando también con eso y como dice Megan, es hora de buscar ayuda cuando está pasando algo así.
Yeah, so exercise. And if that doesn't feel doable, like you can't go exercise, like some days, like you said, you just don't want to. Sunlight, improving, just going outside and absorbing the vitamin D that the sun has to offer and just all the minerals and vitamins that has to give you, right? Because we were made to be out in the sun, right? I'm sure when God created us, he didn't have the idea that we would be indoors all day. I'm sure that maybe wasn't his plan. Appropriate diet, and when I say diet, I do not mean dieting. Don't limit your access to food. Allow access to better foods, right? Like fresh fruits, vegetables. Make sure you're eating whole foods. Maybe stop buying all the chips and cookies from the store, because that is not giving you the minerals and the vitamins that you need, right, to fuel your body. And maybe don't eat as much McDonald's, right? We all love McDonald's, but don't do it. Especially if you are struggling. And I know some days it feels easier. I just don't want to cook right now. Let's just go through the drive-thru. Maybe that's where you call in a friend and say, hey, I really need a home-cooked meal this week. Would you mind doing that for me? You know? And having a friend step in, or your mom, or whoever's there to help you. Getting enough sleep. I know sometimes if you feel depressed, it's hard to sleep, or all you want to do is sleep. But making sure there's a balance, right? I'm getting 8 hours of sleep and I'm getting up at a certain time. Maybe set your alarm and tell yourself, I don't feel like getting out of bed, but at this time, I'm just going to move from the bed to the couch. I can do that. Just get out of bed, okay? I'm not saying you have to stop resting. If your body needs rest, then rest. But maybe move somewhere else so you don't get stuck in the same patterns, right? Like I said, it's a series of patterns. So if you break that pattern, you'll start seeing different results, right?
Exactly.
Social connection. Maybe when you're resting on the couch, invite your friend over. Invite your friend over to talk and play Mario Kart. Or just call a friend, call mom, call whoever. Just talk to someone, right? God created us for connection, right? I find that most days, if I have no energy, the second I talk to a friend, I feel better, right? Or the second I talk to my husband, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm all right, I'm okay.
Sí, eso nos pasa mucho, ¿verdad? Es importante, o también ver una película o simplemente platicar con alguien.
Exactly, just being around people. So like I said, most serotonin is found in your gut, right? So that answers the question of, why sometimes don't I want to eat? When I'm depressed, I just don't feel like eating.
Eso era algo que yo tenía la duda y yo te decía, ¿por qué no quiero comer? Yo, por ejemplo, no tenía hambre de nada. Y entonces bajé en los tiempos que yo estuve mal, yo lo decía anteriormente, bajé como 50 libras, se pueden imaginar, porque yo no comía nada, no quería comer. Pero como mis hijos estaban y mi esposo estaba, entonces yo hacía como que yo comía y yo me agarraba alguna cosa y hacía como que comía. Entonces ahora entiendo lo que tú dices, esa conexión que hay entre el cerebro y el estómago, ¿verdad? Entonces, si tú nos puedes explicar más de eso.
Yeah. The connection there is, like I said, serotonin. Serotonin is what helps runs our digestive system. So if we have a lack of serotonin, our digestive system just like us, does not want to work. It probably is like, whoa, pause. We don't have enough to keep going. Not today, right? And so that may be the reason why I just don't want to eat. Or sometimes it's the reverse. My serotonin is high, but my dopamine is way low. And so that's why I just want to eat all the food to feel better, to have more dopamine, but my digestive system is running like crazy. Or maybe you have to use the bathroom a lot because your digestive system is working overtime because there's a lot of serotonin. And there's a lot more factors tied into that than just serotonin, but that's a big reason why. Because like I said, it's connected. Serotonin is found in our gut, but also our brain as well. So you may not want to eat, but you also may not be able to focus. But you also may not be able to XYZ, any of the other things that it does, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like I said, and I think this is important to mention, it is not always caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain. Not always. Sometimes it's just triggered by a person, triggered by losing something, like maybe a house, a childhood pet, something like that. There's a lot of theories in the psychology world on why depression is caused. One of those theories is that we have, I forget the exact term of it, but a love object essentially. And it's something that we've bonded to, like an item. It can be a favorite blanket, or it can be like a pet or your mother. A lot of times you bond with your mother. So if you lose that object, one of those theories is that if you lose that object, then depression onsets, right? So another thing is sometimes you're just more prone to have depression. Chemically in our DNA, there are certain parts of our DNA in families that makes us more prone to things, makes it more likely for that to happen to us. And you can notice it, like I said, I've been saying, through patterns, right? Look at your family. Does your mom struggle with it? Does your grandma struggle with it? Does grandpa struggle too?
Sí, en mi caso, mi abuelita tenía depresión cuando ya estaba muy enferma y ella falleció de un ataque al corazón. Y luego mi mami también, padecía mucho de la tiroides y mantenía mucha depresión. Entonces es lo que tú estás diciendo, como un patrón que yo vi.
Yeah.
Y sí, es increíble, pero sí afecta.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget that sometimes mental health is inheritable. Like you said, for me, my mom dealt with a lot of anxiety, especially when I was younger. So I watched her deal with that. And also, I don't know if genetically I'm more prone to it or not, but I watched that. And so I grew up knowing that anxiety is normal and it happens, and I started dealing with it too. Right? Sometimes that can happen with depression. Sometimes you are just genetically more likely to receive it. And so doing the things that we talked about, going out in the sun, exercising, eating a good, healthy diet, sometimes enjoying desserts that you love, boosting that dopamine, right? All those things can help, right? You just because you're genetically likely does not mean it has to happen, right?
Algo que yo siento que es muy importante, y tú lo dijiste hace un ratito, es por qué yo me preguntaba, ¿por qué siento que todo está terminando? Que ya mi vida se acaba, todo se acaba. Cuando yo tenía 3 niños y estaba feliz, yo decía, es que yo quiero estar feliz y tengo un buen matrimonio y yo debería estar feliz y tengo que cuidar a mis hijos. Pero yo sentía que todo estaba terminando, como que mi vida estaba terminando. Y esa es una de las cosas que yo quisiera pues que tú nos pudieras explicar.
Yeah. I think, I don't necessarily have a scientific explanation for that, but I have my own way to interpret that, because like I said, I struggled with depression a lot when I was younger. And I think when you start to form a pattern of thoughts in your brain and start to tell yourself the same narrative over and over again, you eventually start to believe it, right? Because I would tell myself over and over again, there's no one here who loves me. And that's not true. There was a lot of people who loves me, but every little action that happened, I took and I confirmed it. So maybe my mom told me no once, or she maybe yelled at me, or I had a friend that said something not so nice and I said, yep, that confirms it. Yes, that confirms it. Yes, my life is over, right? And so we have this tendency to confirm. It's actually, there's a term for it, confirmation bias, right? You are looking for answers, but you're only looking for the answer that you already have, right? You are biased because you already have your own opinion. You already have your own thoughts. And so anytime you see something that confirms it, you're like, oh, yes, I'm right. When there's a million other facts that prove you wrong, but you're only looking for the ones that prove you right. And I think with depression, that happens a lot. Confirmation bias. We may be sad or feeling depressed and, man, my life is over. I feel like there's nothing left for me. And then someone cuts you off in traffic and you're like, exactly, that is what I mean. And no, there's nothing left. This world is terrible. And people cutting you off in traffic is terrible. But you have 3 kids at home. You have a husband who loves you. You have all these things. All these things that prove you wrong. Mm-hmm. But you're only looking for what proves you right. Right? And I think with depression, that happens a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to tell yourself that you're wrong. Right? If I'm thinking these thoughts, well, it must be true. I'm thinking it. Your emotions are real, but they're not always true. I think I said that in our last podcast, and it's something that one of my professors has always said. Emotions are real, but they are not always true. Mm-hmm. And so telling yourself that, I feel this in the moment, but it's not true. I feel like my life is over, but that's not real. I have a husband who loves me. I have children at home. I have a church I love attending. I have all these things. And sometimes it's hard to get rid of all the bad things and replace it with good things. There's a psychologist whose name is Carl Rogers. And the way that he practices therapy is through something called, he has multiple things that he does, but one of them that I have always found impressive is unconditional positive regard. And essentially what he does is with his clients, he always speaks positivity over them. He always speaks positivity over them, always. So if they start talking bad, no. He confronts their bad thoughts with good thoughts that he thinks about them. And so that way they know he always sees them in a good way, right? Because even when I hate myself, even when I hate how I feel, there's someone that always thinks good of me. Mm-hmm. And I think in the world, there is always someone that thinks good of you. There's Jesus. And if you are not a religious person, maybe your family, maybe your friends, maybe your mother. Your mother most likely almost always thinks positively of you, right? So looking for that. And if you can't find it from somewhere, give it to yourself. Can be always positive to yourself. Always. Unconditional positive regard. And so that means no matter what you say, no matter what you think, you always respond with something positive. And through that practice, he saw a lot of good because, a lot of times mental health declines because of what we tell ourselves, right? And if you keep saying it long enough, you'll eventually believe it's true. Oh, my life is over. Oh, my life is over. And that's what leads into, like we were talking about earlier, sometimes suicidal tendencies because we start to believe it really is over. I've told myself this for months, it must be true. But it's not, right?
Y creo que algo que a mí siento que personalmente me ayudó es poder hablar con alguien, porque lo que tú dices está en mi mente, pero cuando yo lo hablo y le digo a alguien lo que está pasando, esa persona me dice, no es cierto, eso que estás diciendo no es cierto, tú vales mucho, tú eres especial, tú tienes un lugar en la familia, tú eres amado, tú eres un ganador, una ganadora. Entonces, poder hablar con alguien es como muy importante, porque entonces esa persona te hace ver otra perspectiva, porque tú solo estás viendo esto y la otra persona te ve, te dice de esto y entonces ya empiezas como a ver la luz, porque siento yo que hay algo que te hace solo ver lo negativo, lo negro, lo feo, lo malo, y ese es el problema, ¿verdad? Entonces, sí, como tú dices, es importante, ¿verdad? Ver otra perspectiva.
Yeah.
Gracias por escucharnos. Seguiremos hablando de este tema en una segunda parte.